What we have in a GAPS person? We have a person with abnormal gut flora. And unfortunately, that's now a majority of people in the Western world. Probably all people in the Western world now have abnormal gut flora.
Thank you, Dr. Natasha Campbell-McBride, for being here. It's really an honor that you're going to be here to explain a little bit more about the huge connection brain-gut, which a lot of people don't really even think about. So thank you. But first, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background and how do you work with your patients?
Thank you for inviting me. I'm delighted to be on your program. I'm a medical doctor and I'm a creator of the GAPS nutritional protocol. GAPS stands for Gut and Psychology Syndrome and Gut and Physiology Syndrome. And what this syndrome does, it establishes a connection between the functioning of the digestive system of the person and the functioning of the rest of the body of the person. My gut and psychology book focused on the function of the brain mainly, but of course there is a connection with the rest of the body because human body works as a whole. It is one entity, everything is connected in it. What we have in a GAPS person? We have a person with abnormal gut flora. And unfortunately, that's now a majority of people in the Western world. Probably all people in the Western world now have abnormal gut flora. Gut flora is a mixture of microbes that live inside our digestive system. And in a healthy person...
So how many microbes do you think we have in the body? That's very important also to visualize.
Well, 90% of all cells in the human body are in our gut flora. That's what our recent research has told us. 90%. So the human body is just a shell, a habitat for this mass of microbes that live inside us. And we ignore them at our peril because the number of functions that they fulfill for us are absolutely vital for the whole body. And there are more. We are basically microbes. The majority of us are microbes. And in a healthy person, the gut flora is well balanced. There are bacteria there and viruses and archaea, protozoa, worms, flukes, all kinds of creatures, from the tiniest microscopic spore or a virus to a meter-long thing. And all of these things are important and they all should be there because they all, when they live together in balance, they plant each other, they harvest each other, they eat each other, they control each other. They don't allow each other to cause any trouble, any one of them. Problem is, we human beings are very good at creating imbalance on our beautiful planet. We've been doing that with impunity for the last 200 years or so. And we've been doing the same with the mixture of microbes in our digestive tract. Every time you take an antibiotic, you kill bacteria. These bacteria were eating and controlling fungi, protozoa, viruses, archaea, worms, all kinds of creatures. So when these bacteria suddenly are gone, then all these other creatures get out of control and they grow very fast. They produce trillions of babies per hour. You know, they can really multiply very, very quickly. The beneficial bacteria in the gut do recover, but it takes them time. And that time is a special opportunity for all these fungi and viruses and other things to overgrow and occupy large territories in the digestive tract. So from one course of antibiotic to the next course of antibiotic and to the next course, there's less and less of balance and diversity left in your gut flora and more of an imbalance and pathology in there. Pathological microbes overgrow in there, pathogenic microbes. And problem is that in our modern world, people take antibiotics every day, not just from the doctor, because majority of agricultural chemicals that our big agriculture uses for growing crops and for bringing up animals are antibiotics in their nature. Pesticides, fungicides, herbicides, all sorts of sides, they're all antibiotics. So every time we eat anything, whether it's plants or meat or milk or eggs or bread or anything else, we're eating antibiotics. Everything you buy from a supermarket comes from the industrial agriculture. And these antibiotics, these chemicals are in our food, and they are damaging the integrity of our gut flora. When that happens, when the gut flora is abnormal, pathogenic microbes damage the integrity of the gut wall. Literally holes develop in the gut wall. The gut wall becomes like a sieve, so foods don't get the chance to be digested properly before they absorb. They absorb undigested. Then your immune system finds them in the bloodstream, looks at them and says, you're not food, I don't recognize you as food, and attacks them. And this attack manifests itself as a food allergy or intolerance. Majority of people in the Western world now have some kind of food allergies and intolerances because they're not digesting their food well and because the gut wall is damaged. It's porous and leaky. At the same time, all this, yeah?
No, that there is people that constantly are releasing histamine and they constantly have running nose and they don't even know which is the trigger anymore of the allergies. And it's because they end up with leaky gut syndrome. So constantly they are releasing histamine from mast cells. So that
absolutely. Histamine is produced by the majority of microbes on our planet. And when certain microbes overgrow in the digestive tract, they produce too much histamine.
Yeah.
Histamine is a powerful hormone. Human body produces it too. It's an essential molecule that our bodies produce as well. But when microbes start producing it as well, it's too much. When you have too much histamine in the body, you'll get all sorts of symptoms, all sorts of allergies. And the problem is that this histamine intolerance is not just histamine. There are many other amines that microbes produce in the gut. All of them are active in a person with constantly runny nose and tearing eyes and hay fever and other atopic conditions. Yeah. So in order to get rid of all of these conditions, we have to normalize the gut flora. We have to drive out pathogens. We have to reestablish normal balance of microbes in there. And we have to heal and seal the gut wall. And that is what GAPS nutritional protocol is designed to do. Because
so,
problem in the GAPS people is that...
Can you explain a little bit more how that bacteria imbalance, how is teaching and controlling our immune system and how is affecting indirectly the brain?
Absolutely. This pathological mixture of microbes, this pathogenic gut flora, it eats the food that you eat and converts it into thousands and thousands of poisonous chemicals. These chemicals absorb through the damaged gut wall into the blood, into the lymph, and get distributed all over the body. Wherever they get to in the body, they will cause disease, they will cause trouble. We can start with the brain. When they get in the brain, these chemicals, they can cause any kind of symptom that the brain might produce, is able to produce. And because in every human being, their gut flora is unique, every human being is unique, and the mixture of toxins coming out of the gut and flowing into the brain is unique as well. As a result, the mixture of symptoms that the brain will be producing will be unique for every human being. And sometimes this mixture of symptoms can fit into a diagnostic box. So psychiatrists can give you a diagnosis such as depression or bipolar disorder or anxiety or something else. But in most cases, they can't fit you into any diagnostic box because you are unique and you have a unique mixture of symptoms. And because all these diagnoses are simply descriptive, they don't really tell us much. They don't tell us why you're ill and how we can get rid of this disorder. They don't really help the patient at all. We have an epidemic of learning disabilities in children. That's what my book, my GAPS book is focused upon. Largely, it's focused on autism, ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, and other problems in children. We have an epidemic. When I was training as a medical doctor, we were diagnosing one child in 10,000 with autism. In fact, when I was studying psychiatry, there were no autistic children or adults that our teachers could demonstrate to us. Yeah. It was so rare, this disorder. We just didn't see it. We only read about it in the books.
Even now, all the kids are in the box of ADD, ADHD, and they don't even relate it that maybe they are eating too much sugar and that is affecting the gut and then it's affecting the brain.
That's right, that's right. And what's happened now is in the English-speaking world, today we're diagnosing one child in 35 autistic, and researchers have already projected that line. By 2025, we are scheduled to diagnose one child in 2. Half of our children in the English-speaking world will be autistic. The other half is not going to be healthy either. They'll be suffering from ADHD, ADD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, oppositional defiant disorder, and eczema, asthma, diabetes type 1, rheumatoid arthritis, and all kinds of other illnesses. We're moving to a situation when there will be no healthy children around at all. All our children will be sick. And already there is quite a growing proportion of children that are scheduled, are predicted not to outlive their parents because their constitution is so poor, so bad in these children. The parents are going to bury these children. And that proportion, unfortunately, is growing every year. So what's happening? Why do you want me to say what is happening? Why all this is happening?
Yeah.
Why is all this happening? All this is happening because of a wonderful process that Mother Nature gave us, and that is that mother and father, at the moment of birth, pass their gut flora to the baby. How does it happen? When the baby goes through the birth canal, the baby swallows mouthfuls of microbes that live in the mother's birth canal, in the mother's vagina. Where does vaginal flora come from? It comes from the woman's bowel. So if a woman has abnormal gut flora, she will have abnormal flora in her vagina, and that's what she will pass to her baby at the moment of birth. If the father has abnormal gut flora, that flora will populate all the organs in his groin, and he shares that flora with the mother on a regular basis through sexual contact. So that's how both the mother and the father are supposed to pass their gut flora to the baby at the moment of birth. Many babies nowadays are born with C-section, through C-section. And in these children, the research shows that their gut flora is impoverished. The diversity is much lower because it comes from the hands of people who look after the child, from the nipple of the mother, from the breast milk, and from bottles and whatever else there is in the environment for these children. So these children are prone to allergies, are prone to eczema, asthma, and other things like that because their gut flora is simply unbalanced and impoverished. So when a child acquires abnormal gut flora from day one, from the parents, these children are left immune compromised because our immune system, it's like a little alien when the child comes into this world. Yeah. It's a system that needs education. It needs to learn about this environment. Establishment of gut flora is a major educational experience for our immune system in the first few months of life for the baby. And if the baby has acquired abnormal gut flora from day one, then the baby is left immune compromised because the immune system receives the wrong information, the wrong lesson. These children are immune compromised. They are not fit to be vaccinated with the standard vaccination protocol. Vaccinations damage these children. These children are prone to eczema, to asthma, to various reactions. And while they are breastfed, because the breast milk is the easiest thing to digest for a baby, it literally doesn't need digestion. These children continue growing and developing more or less normally. The child may suffer from eczema, might have colic, which means the child has abnormal gut flora, might be crying baby, might not sleep very well, but nobody's too concerned because the baby is growing, developing, and everything seems to be okay. All the milestones are okay. But when the breastfeeding stops, the protection from the breast milk stops as well. And when the child starts eating solids, that's usually when children develop autism or hyperactivity or another learning disability. What happens with these children? In a child like this with abnormal gut flora, their gut wall is damaged, and the digestive system, instead of being a source of nourishment for that baby, becomes a major source of toxicity in the body. Thousands of various toxins, chemicals flow from the gut into the blood and get to the brain of the child. And they clog the brain with toxicity. How do babies learn? I've explained this in many of my interviews. They use their sensory organs to collect information from the environment. They listen to everything, They look at everybody, they touch everything, they take everything in their mouth. What are they doing? They're using their ears, their eyes, their tactile sensitivity, their smell, their taste buds to collect information from the environment. And then these organs pass that information to the brain processes it, and from that information the child learns how to be a human being in this world. But if the brain is clogged with toxins, which came from the gut of the baby, it can't process this information. All this information turns into a noise, into a mush in the baby's head, and from that noise the child cannot decipher anything useful. So if this toxicity, the worst situation, if this toxicity is very severe, then the child will become autistic. The child will develop autism. But if this toxicity is different, maybe not so severe, a bit less toxins, then the child may become hyperactive, develop attention deficit, develop dyslexia, dyspraxia, psychosis, anxiety, depression, you name it. Any group of symptoms that the brain can produce, it will produce. Depends even what kind of toxins are blocking the brain in the child. And in order to help these children, we need to take this toxic fog out of the brain. We need to stop bombarding the brain with this river of toxicity. And in order to do that, we need to close up the gut wall. We need to close those holes in the gut wall. We need to heal and seal the gut wall. And in order to do that, we need to change the gut flora. We need to drive out pathogens and reestablish normal, balanced community of microbes that live in the digestive tract of the child. I know now, I don't know how many children, certainly tens of thousands around the world, who recovered from learning disabilities. The younger the child is with the GAPS nutritional protocol, the younger the child is, the quicker they recover and the more fully they recover. Because children learn certain skills at a certain age. We have to learn to walk when we're about 1. We have to learn to talk when we're about 2. In the 3rd year of life, we develop some fineries of the language and other skills, play skills and so on. So normal children are not standing still. Healthy developing, typically developing normal children, they're developing at a very rapid pace. So for our little autistic one, when we start doing the GAPS nutritional protocol, depending how old that child is, that's how much development that child has missed out. Maybe it's 3 years, maybe it's 4 years, maybe it's 5 years. So the longer the child missed out, the more work they have to do to catch up, to learn all those skills that they've missed out on. So when we catch a 2-year-old and put them on the GAPS nutritional protocol, 2.5, 3, very often these children we don't even need to educate them specially. As soon as the gut wall seals itself, that toxic river stops coming from the gut to the brain, and the brain cleans up. Because human brain has a wonderful ability to clean itself. It cleans up. And that's the moment when the child comes out of that toxic fog, wakes up and starts learning, starts developing, like any normal child will do. And if the child is young enough, then the child can shake autism off completely, 100%. The older the child is when this moment happens, the more they missed out on their development, the more behind their peers they have fallen, the more they have to learn, the more damage they have to undo. So they may not recover 100%, but they will improve. They all improve. Even severely autistic individuals at the age of 30 and 40 improve. They all improve. So it's always worth doing the nutritional protocol.
It's really amazing that since they are so little, they're able to improve and even faster than when they are elder. And it's beautiful what you said about our brain has the ability just to heal by itself. Our body in general can heal by itself. But this that you were talking about is really, really important, because we don't really think how important is the health of the dad and the mom before the baby comes to the world. And there are, an example for that is candida. During breastfeeding, a lot of kids can end up with the thrush, and that is a sign that there's something going on in the mom's microbiome, and she's passing candida overgrowth to the baby. and has been, Candida can end up being systemic and go to the brain, or even the immune response against Candida can start circulating around. So that's really, really eye-opening. So there is a big controversy and discussion with dairy. So talking about toxins, we are the only species that continues drinking milk after breastfeeding, and a lot of childs end up with a lot of conditions after breastfeeding when they start drinking conventional store-bought dairy. So can you tell us a little bit about the relationship between dairy and brain-related disorders?
Absolutely. The milk that you buy in a supermarket is not real milk. It comes from a breed of cow that has been developed in laboratory in Europe by scientists. They have selected cows who had a tumor in their brain, and as a result, they were producing too much growth hormone. And that growth hormone made them produce lots of milk, much more milk than a healthy, normal cow can produce. So these sick animals were collected, and from them, they developed these new commercial breeds of cow, the black and white Holstein Friesian cows. These are Frankenstein cows, and they give a Frankenstein milk. And most milk in our supermarkets and all dairy in our supermarkets are made from that milk. I have a stack full of scientific studies that demonstrate that this milk causes every disease under the sun. Cancer, heart disease, diabetes, autoimmune disorders, allergies, learning disabilities, mental illness, anything at all. Because this is not the kind of milk that Mother Nature intended us to have. This is a man-made creation. It's a Frankenstein milk. In order to, in the GAPS nutritional protocol, we use dairy, we use milk, but we find real cows that Mother Nature created, not human beings in their laboratories, and real goats and sheep. You can milk ewes, you can milk horses, you can milk donkeys, you can milk deer, and you can milk camels. And people in different parts of the world milk different animals. So we want natural animals. We want these animals to be on organic, natural pasture. And that is real pasture, where there are some 60 varieties of different grasses and herbs growing together, and the cow lives there permanently on that pasture, more or less. And the milk comes. That's a very different milk. And we want that milk raw, unpasteurized, from organic pasture, unpasteurized milk. Because milk of any animal is alive. It is a living substance. Because milk of any animal, including human milk, is the white blood of the female, with the red blood cells removed and some other things removed. Everything that's in your blood will be flowing in your milk. So this milk has alive and active immune cells, alive and active white blood cells, active hormones, active neurotransmitters, active enzymes, and active microbes. Because now we know that human blood is not sterile. It has many microbes. It's called the flora of its own. We have a flora in our blood, and all that flows through the milk of the mother. If we start pasteurizing breast milk, our babies would die. They would not survive because they need to receive it alive, living. There's energy there. There's life in it. Life is something absolutely sacred and wonderful, and that's what the baby has to receive. That's what we receive when we drink raw milk, unpasteurized milk. So we want real cows. We want these cows on pasture, on organic, real organic pasture. Not a pasture that a commercial farmer would plow and grow some hybrid monoculture grass, spray it with chemicals, cut that grass, give it to the cows, and call his cows grass-fed. That's what grass-fed meat is, that is sold in the supermarkets. It's a big lie. So we want the real cows. We want the real milk. And when we buy this milk, we bring it home and we ferment it. Because GAPS people cannot digest lactose, the milk sugar lactose. It feeds pathogenic microbes in the gut. So what we do, we make homemade yogurt, homemade kefir, and homemade cheese, and homemade sour cream. We have to ferment it for 24 hours to digest all the lactose. Because when we add the fermenting microbes into the milk, they consume the lactose. That's what microbes like to eat. They like to eat sugars. So our fermented, home fermented proper dairy products, they are truly lactose free. And another magical thing happens when we ferment for 24 hours and when the milk is raw like that, we don't heat it at all, we don't subject it to any kind of treatment. They pre-digest casein, they pre-digest albumin, they pre-digest all the hard to digest proteins in the milk. So because of the existence of gluten casein free diet for autism, it's a waste of time. Please don't waste your time on that diet. I do not recommend that diet because it doesn't heal the gut, it doesn't change the gut flora, it only removes 2 toxins out of the equation in a body of an autistic child, which can bring some improvement. It's better to have less toxins, of course, but there are hundreds of other toxins still flowing from the gut into the bloodstream and getting in the brain of the child. Of course, removing a couple of toxins out of the equation might help a little, but it's not going to heal the child. And it's not going to heal the gut. It's not going to really change the situation. Mm-hmm. So in the GAPS nutritional protocol, we focus on healing the gut, on changing the gut flora, and to fix the problem permanently, to fix it, to go to the root of the problem. Yeah. When we ferment the milk properly at home for 24 hours, these products get pre-digested by the microbes, broken down. So casein is not a problem anymore. Proteins in the milk are not a problem anymore, these children.
So actually that touches me really close because I grew up after breastfeeding. I grew up with my grandfather's cow's milk. He had cows and we were getting fresh milk all the time. We were just boiling it a little bit, but not cleaning it that much. So to still keep some bacteria, and we were making kefir with it. So that was the cleanest milk that I grew up with until we started buying the store-bought, and there are a lot of issues came into place. So is there any difference
supermarkets between... Altogether, supermarkets are not good places for buying food. Because you know that the supermarket, all the food in there comes from the big agriculture, industrial agriculture, which is ever so clever and uses an increasing number of terrible chemicals. And they're all in the food. And the food is changed and altered and hybridized, and genetically modified, and all sorts of things are done. We need to go back to farms.
Prosperity, sedentary life gave us money to go and buy food that is not real food. So always trying to find the local farmers and doing a little bit of research is always possible. It's easier for the pocket and it's easier for the body too. So that's good. Absolutely. So talking about the casein, because there was always a discussion, is casein, not lactose, the one that is causing digestive issues? Because if you suffer from gastrointestinal inflammation, you cannot digest it. But now that you said there is no casein anymore, is it true that casein doesn't cause any gut inflammation? And is there any difference between the casein from the goat or the cow in order to digest it better?
Well, the goat's milk actually contains more of the particular protein that converts into that casomorphin that has been researched. But as I say, we ferment it properly. Fermented dairy in the supermarket have not been fermented long enough. They have not been fermented properly. And to make yogurt, if you buy yogurt in the supermarket, or you buy cheese in the supermarket, or anything else like that. At home, we ferment it properly for 24 hours. And for any person that is concerned about dairy, if you follow the GAPS introduction diet, you'll be introducing dairy very gradually, very slowly, from tiny amounts, and it's all homemade, it's all home fermented. You will see quite quickly, the only allergy that we respect is anaphylactic type reaction. That can kill. That's a dangerous reaction. That's the only one. If there is no anaphylactic type reaction to any particular food, we ignore these reactions. We just focus on healing and sealing the gut lining in a person. Milk is a wonderful part of human diet. For people who can tolerate it and have it, it's a beautiful addition to the diet. I wouldn't want to live without butter and sour cream and cheese and cream. And raw milk as well, because at some point after your gut has healed, you will be able to drink the milk just as it is. I have No end of recovered autistic children who used to be autistic who drinking lots of cow's milk, raw, and they're fine. There are no reactions.
Wow. So let's dive in a little bit more into the GAPS protocol. Which are the most important foods do you recommend we need to eliminate from the diet first in order to start cleaning?
We remove all the foods that are difficult to digest. And these are all grains, most beans and lentils, leguminous plants, and starch. Starch is a very large molecule under the microscope, looks like a big bush, and it's very difficult to digest. In fact, most starch in our plants is indigestible. And there is a lot of research which will tell you, particularly our science, nutritional science will tell you that starch is good for you, fiber is good for you because they feed your gut flora. If your gut flora, starch and fiber feed equally the good bacteria and the bad bacteria, the good microbes and the pathogenic ones. If your digestive tract is populated by healthy, balanced gut flora, then starch and fiber will feed them, they'll get stronger and bigger and make you healthier as a result. But if your gut is dominated by pathogenic mixture of microbes, they will feed on starch, they will feed on fiber, and they will make you very sick as a result. And that is why starch and fiber are not good for GAPS people, are not good for people with abnormal gut flora, and we remove them. So all starchy vegetables, potato family, that's potatoes, sweet potatoes, yams, Jerusalem artichokes, and parsnips are removed. And all grains and most beans because of starch. Not so much because of gluten, but because of starch. But because we remove all the grains, the GAPS diet is truly gluten-free. There are no traces of gluten there at all. And we focus on healing and sealing the gut lining. There are many foods that cross-react with gluten, such as bananas, and tomatoes and some other things. But once we seal the gut lining, once we heal it, these cross reactions stop. And we focus on the foods that are particularly powerful at healing the gut wall. Basically what we're doing, we're rebuilding a gut wall. We're building a new gut wall for the child or for the adult. Because human body doesn't waste time on healing a sick cell. If a cell is sick, it kills it and removes it. And to replace it, it gives birth to another cell, to a baby cell. And if the body has enough building materials to create that cell out of quality building materials, and the proper environment to keep that little baby cell healthy, then that cell will replace the sick cell. But if the body doesn't have enough nutrition and the damaging elements in the body still continue, these newly born cells get damaged immediately as soon as they're born, and the disease continues in the person. So what we do with the GAPS nutritional protocol, we're building a new gut wall for the person. Because the cells that line the gut only live a few days. They have a very short life. They are born at the bottom of the villi, they travel up the villi during their life, digesting the food, and then as they reach the top of the villi, they get too old, too worn out, they die, and they get removed. And new baby cells are born all the time. So in order for the gut lining to build a new gut lining, building materials are required. We have to build it from something, don't we? So if you take water out of the human body, about 70% of human body is water. If you take water away, the dry weight is about 50-50, protein and fat. So we provide concentrated amounts of quality protein and quality fats in order for the gut lining to be able to give birth to trillions of new baby cells every day made out of quality materials, strong, robust, healthy cells. So we can rebuild the gut lining out of good quality materials so it doesn't leak anymore. So it is strong and it can heal the person, can remove the whole situation. So that's what we do. That is why the main parts of the GAPS nutritional protocol are, the staples are meat stock, homemade meat stock. Please don't confuse it with bone broth. We do not start with bone broth in the GAPS nutritional protocol, not at all. The bone broth is something that we don't drink for a year. We start with meat stock, proper meat stock. The recipes are all described in my book because the book is self-help book. All the information necessary for doing the protocol is in the book. Majority of people around the world just buy the book, follow the protocol, and recover from all kinds of illnesses. They never had any consultations with me or anybody else, and they get results. So that is the very basis of what you should do if you want to follow this protocol. All the recipes are in there, and everything is explained in great detail in there.
Yeah, it's really, really helpful. It really helped me a lot. And as you said, bone broth is a magic pill, as I always say. It's so good always to heal the gut lining. It's like when our grandmothers used to say, when you get sick, you gotta eat chicken soup. That was already very soothing.
That is meat stock. That's right. Meat stock, chicken soup. You put a whole chicken in the pan, you fill it up with water, you put 4 or 5 liters of water, salt, pepper, and you cook it for 2-3 hours. And then you get the chicken out, you eat the chicken, you drink the stock, and with the bouillon you can make soup, and you keep drinking it, and that will provide the best building materials for the gut lining.
Yeah, and what you said about the starch, that is extremely important. When I work with my clients, I always tell them they have to go on a low starchy diet, because starch also feed the yeast and the opportunistic bacteria, and it's all about balancing the microbiome, again, the bacteria in our gut, decreasing candida overgrowth, so then we can start also healing the gut lining. So what do you think now, and it's very popular, what do you think about the low carb diet, high fat diets? Because usually for the brain, we always think about glucose as a fuel, right? But what do you think about the fat?
Fats are absolutely important for human body, for the human beings, because remember, as I said, we're about 50-50 protein and fat. That's what we're made from when you take water away. Yeah, without 70% water, the rest, the dry weight, is 50-50 protein and fat. When we analyze human fat in a laboratory, we discover that in its structure, in its biochemical structure, it's very similar to lamb fat, beef fat, pork fat, goose fat, duck fat, chicken fat, and butter. Mm-hmm. Vegetable oils are very, very different and completely unsuitable. So those are the only fats that are really suitable for building our own bodies. Your brain is very rich in fats. It's a high fat organ. Your bone marrow, that's where all your blood cells, immune cells are born, and bone cells are born, and many other cells are born. That's a maternity unit for many, many cells in the body. That's largely fat. Your endocrine organs, your pancreas, your thyroid gland, your adrenals, other endocrine glands are very high fat organs. Many organs in the lungs are a very high fat organ. Absolutely essential for lungs, the fat. So fats are structural elements for the human body. 50% of us is dry weight are made out of them. So they're not optional. That is why GAPS diet is high fat. We use a lot of fat in the GAPS diet. And everything has to be, every meal that we eat has to have plenty of fats in it. They're essential. And when I was talking about this to my patients, of course, everybody would ask me the same question. What about heart disease? Because we've lived in a world of fat phobia and cholesterol phobia for such a long time now. And so having explained to a 100 person that natural animal fats do not cause heart disease, that they actually reverse it, and you can actually heal yourself from heart disease by eating pork fat and by eating lamb fat, I thought I better write a book about this. So I've written a book called Put Your Heart in Your Mouth, what really causes heart disease and what we can do to reverse it, to prevent it and reverse it. So please read that book. The book is fully referenced for the scientifically minded and for the professionals, but it's written in an easy to understand way, easy to understand language for the majority of people, to understand what really causes heart disease. And it is not eggs and butter, and it is not lamb fat and beef fat and pork fat. So the more fat the human being eats, the quicker they recover from illnesses, in my experience, particularly people with mental illnesses. We are rebuilding the brain. The brain has been destroyed by all this toxicity bombarding it. Yeah. And of course, the immune system, when these toxins accumulate in the brain, the immune system is involved. It will always be involved. The brain of autistic children and children with other problems and the brain of psychiatric patients is inflamed. There's inflammation going on in there because the immune system is trying to clean all those toxins out. And there's autoimmunity going on at the same time. Because inflammation is a non-specific response that the immune system has. It's off the shelf. It can launch it in seconds, very quickly. But if the situation continues for a couple of months, the immune system will have enough time to learn about these toxins in the brain and start producing specific antibodies against these contaminated tissues in the brain. So the brain is under autoimmune attack. In every mentally ill patient, in every child with a learning disability, there is an autoimmune attack on the brain. So not only toxicity the brain has to deal with, it has to deal with inflammation and autoimmune attack that is going on by the immune system. That is why these people are ill. That is why the brain is not functioning, and a lot of brain is being destroyed. The tissue of the brain is being destroyed in these people by the immune system. So we need to rebuild the brain. And the brain is a high-fat organ, and it's high-protein organ as well. So we need lots of good quality protein and lots of good quality fat. That is why we need to eat fats. It's essential.
Yeah, not all fats are made equal, as you said, between vegetable fat or animal fat, and not all of them raise the risk of cardiovascular diseases. So that is something that has been a misconception for many, many years. People going in low-fat diets, so then our body end up crashing every single organ of our body. So definitely fat is important, and actually going back to breast milk is full of fat. So
absolutely, a very high level of cholesterol in it as well.
A lot of cholesterol. So cholesterol, not all cholesterol is the one raising cardiovascular diseases. And then you brought also the conversation of the protein, because you know there's people that are carnivores, others because of beliefs they want to be vegan or vegetarian. So based on protein, how do you think is the difference? How is affecting the brain, the digestion of animal protein versus plant-based protein? And also, which is the one that the GAPS protocol is incorporating the most in that diet?
Well, when we analyze the human protein that our body is made from in a laboratory, we find that in its biochemical composition, it's very similar to proteins in meat, fish, eggs, and dairy. Plants are full of proteins, but these proteins are indigestible for the human digestive system. Our digestive system has not been designed to digest them properly. The most famous protein that's the most researched from plants is gluten. And you probably know somebody who is gluten intolerant, and I'm sure the list of these people is growing that you know, because the more we're researching gluten, the more we're realizing that nobody can digest it. No human being on our planet can digest gluten. Everybody gets damaged by gluten. And it's just one protein that we've researched. There are many, many other proteins in plant foods. The reason why we're reacting to them this way, because they're indigestible for the human digestive system. And they do not digest properly. They just damage our system. And when we analyze them in a laboratory, we find that their amino acid composition is wrong for building our own protein. Not only we can't digest plant proteins, but when we do digest them partially, or if they pre-digested for us in a factory, using chemicals and pressure and all sorts of methods, the amino acid composition of these plant proteins is inappropriate for building our protein. Certain amino acids are missing, other amino acids are in excess, where if you eat a piece of meat, the amino acid composition of that protein is correct for building your body. I'm glad you asked about vegetarianism, because I was getting all these anorexic girls in my clinic, where majority of them became anorexic or bipolar or schizophrenic because of misguided vegetarianism, because they became vegetarian. And that spurred a very great interest in this area. I wanted to understand what's going on. So I started researching vegetarianism. And the first thing that I've discovered is that there are no scientific studies that we can rely upon. All the so-called science, all the published studies that were done on vegetarianism were done by pro-vegetarian lobby And they're incorrectly designed, incorrectly analyzed, and we simply can't trust them, these studies. The biggest lie amongst them is the China study. You absolutely cannot trust the China study. It's a pack of lies, basically. So we can't trust them. So then I had to go back to the basic sciences, to the science of biology, zoology, agriculture, and biochemistry, and physiology, and clinical experience. That is a very, very important one. And based on all the information that I got from there, I've written a book called Vegetarianism Explained, Making an Informed Decision, where I explain that animal foods, meat, fish, eggs, and dairy are the only foods that our digestive system has been designed to digest and break down properly. So these are the only foods that are capable of feeding and building the human body, building your heavy bones, your heavy muscles, your big brain, your big liver, your big lungs, your big heart. All these are very dense material organs made out of 70% water and the rest 50-50 protein and fat. And the only foods that are capable of building that physical structure that you live in are animal foods: meat, fish, eggs, and dairy. Plants are indigestible for the human digestive system. Mother Nature created herbivorous animals in order to digest plants. Cows and deer and goats and antelope and other herbivorous animals. And in order for these animals to be able to digest the plant matter, Mother Nature equipped them with a very special digestive system called rumen. A cow has 4 stomachs, enormous, huge, 4 stomachs. So when she swallows a mouthful of grass, this grass goes into these 4 stomachs, and these stomachs are full of microbes. That is what the bulk, the majority of her gut flora lives. They immediately start working on that grass, these bacteria, these microbes, digesting it, breaking it apart, converting sugars into short-chain fatty acids. About 70% of all sugars that are in the grass that the cow has eaten are converted into saturated fat, short-chain fatty acids. And so the cow actually lives on a very high-fat diet. So, and then they will digest that a mouthful of grass, and then they will send it back into her mouth. She will regurgitate it, chew it again, and then swallow it again. And she does that with every mouthful of grass 200 times. It's called ruminating. That is why the cows are chewing all the time. It's a very special, yes, a very, very special digestive process. And then once these plants are, so not the cow is digesting the plants that she's eating. It's the microbes in her rumen that digest the grass for her. Because the basic truth from biology that we've known for many, many decades is that the only creatures on this planet who can truly digest plants are microbes. No other creatures on the planet can do it. Only microbes have the ability to truly break down plant matter. The cow is not digesting the grass herself. It's the microbes in her digestive tract that are digesting it. We human beings have a very different digestive system. We have a small stomach, and if it is healthy, it virtually has no microbes in it because it produces hydrochloric acid, which creates a very hostile environment for any kind of microbes living in the digestive tract. The acidity in the stomach when we're hungry can go below 2 pH, even below 1. And that's an environment where all microbes are killed, basically destroyed. So when we swallow the food, that's where it lands, in that little stomach, full of acid. And other substances in the stomach, juice pepsin and other stomach substances. The only things they can really digest and break down are meat, fish, eggs, and dairy. And these are the foods that are properly digested in our stomach. And then they pass into a few meters of intestines where absorption of the food happens. And the only things that can be absorbed in there are the foods that were properly digested in the stomach. Again, meat, fish, eggs, and dairy. Plants are indigestible. They sit in our stomach doing very little. They don't get digested in the stomach. Then they get passed into the intestines. In the intestines, we absorb some vitamins, some juices, some phytonutrients. but the protein is indigestible. We absorb some oils, but these oils in their biochemical composition are inappropriate. They do not build the bulk of our fat, of our fatty organs in the body, and every cell membrane is a fat as well. So the plants just go through the digestive tract and eventually land in the bowel in the human beings. That's the equivalent of rumen in the cow, in us, human beings. That's where the majority of our gut flora lives. The difference is that in the cow, her rumen is at the beginning of her digestive system, where grass is digested properly, and then it goes into the intestines, and whatever's been digested in the rumen absorbs. Where in us human beings, our rumen is at the end of the digestive system. When the absorption has already happened higher up, it's too late for the absorption. So the bulk of nutrition, the feeding, building foods for the human beings are meat, fish, eggs, and dairy. Plants are unable to feed human beings. So why do we eat plants at all? Because plants have powerful cleansing substances. They are detoxifiers, they are cleansers. They keep our bodies clean on the inside. It is important for us to be well fed and to be clean on the inside. That is why we combine the animal foods with the plant matter. Some people need more building for their body. Some other people who are very toxic need more cleansing for their body. So they perhaps will do well to eat more plants for a period of time while they're cleansing. But when the body's finished cleansing, it will give you a signal. I finished cleansing now. I'm hungry. Feed me. And the way the body will ask for it, it will give you a desire for a piece of meat, for a pot of cream, for a piece of cheese, for eggs and bacon, something like that. And unfortunately, many vegans in our modern world, they do not listen to their body's signals. They override that signal with their emotional ideas and their ethical ideas and their religious ideas or whatever else they have. And they force their body to continue cleansing. Because veganism is not a diet, it is a form of fasting. Mm-hmm. These people are fasting, they're cleansing, actively cleansing, because all the plants that they're eating are not feeding their body, they're cleansing the body. A cleaner body feels better than a toxic one. That is why many very toxic and ill people feel much better when they go on a vegan fast in the first few weeks. And that's the time when they write their evangelical books about veganism. But at some point, the body will finish cleansing and it will ask to be fed. But unfortunately, many of these people override that signal. They do not listen to their body. They're forced to continue cleansing when the body really needs to be fed at that point. And that's the point when the body will start cannibalizing itself. It will start breaking down less important tissues to feed more important organs. For example, it will start breaking down your muscle to feed the brain, the heart, the liver, the lungs, and other important organs. It will start breaking down bone tissue to feed more important organs. And that's where the time when the people start becoming ill. The brain usually starves because the brain is a high fat organ. It requires large amount of cholesterol every minute of its existence. Plant foods have no cholesterol in them at all. Only animal foods can provide this very valuable and vital molecule for the brain. When the brain doesn't receive enough cholesterol, the memory starts suffering, the personality starts changing in the person, and the sense of humor disappears quite often in these vegans. And they simply lose the intellectual acuity of the brain to realize what's going on with them. They lose touch with what's going on in their bodies. They do not realize that they're destroying the body, that the body is being destroyed. And eventually, if people push themselves long enough into this situation, they become ill. They develop a degenerative disease, usually neurological disease. Parkinson's disease, multiple sclerosis are very common amongst these people. Mental illnesses are extremely common. From my clinical perspective, misguided vegetarianism is rapidly becoming a major cause of mental illness amongst our young people. I have seen far too many youngsters with mental illnesses because of veganism and misguided vegetarianism. So please read that book. I have a large chapter there which is called Where Does Our Food Come From?, where I explain the agricultural point of view and where the food comes from. And the myth that vegans and vegetarians believe that they're saving the planet by their choice Just the opposite, you are destroying the planet.
Yeah.
You have been brainwashed by the mainstream propaganda. So please read that book to really understand what vegetarianism is all about and what is happening.
This is really, really eye-opening, and a lot of people decide also to go on a vegan diet because they want to lose weight, because all vegan people look very skinny, and actually it's the process of what you said. The body is in a constant fast, and at some point is to start eating protein, taking protein from other parts of the body, including the muscle, is why they look skinnier, in order to build up other important organs like the heart, for example. So that's really eye-opening. It's important they go to read that book. And I always say vegetables are important, as you say, in every diet, but I consider fiber a weapon when somebody has really, really severe gastrointestinal inflammation or issue like, for example, diverticulitis. Insoluble fiber can be really difficult. So how in the GAPS diet do you suggest is the most beneficial way to incorporate vegetables?
In the GAPS diet, we cook a lot of our vegetables. We cook them as a soup in our meat stock. Because when you cook vegetables, they become more digestible. They're easier to digest. Their cleansing ability is reduced dramatically because it's the raw fruit and vegetables, raw plants that have the powerful cleansing ability for us. Their cleansing ability is reduced dramatically, but they become more digestible, much gentler on the digestive system. We remove starch, so there are no starchy vegetables, but all the other vegetables are allowed, and we use them in the diet. Through my experience, my patients have taught me a very valuable lesson, that human beings can live perfectly well without plants altogether. I had children in my clinic with ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, and with FPIES, babies with FPIES. That is a terrible new disorder that is now becoming more and more prevalent. It's basically breastfed babies who cannot digest any protein at all. They don't put weight on, vomiting, diarrhea. The children don't grow, don't develop. It's a terrible, terrible situation. So with this kind of children, we were reducing the plant matter, because the plants provide the fiber. And if the gut wall is very inflamed and very irritated, there are ulcerations there, bleeding, and stool has blood in it in these children. They can't tolerate any amount of fiber. It's a huge irritant for the digestive tract in these children. So we were reducing plant matter, and eventually we had no choice but to remove all plants altogether. And only when that happened, these children started recovering. I now have children with ulcerative colitis who came off all medication, developing beautifully, healthy, rosy cheeks, bushy tails, beautiful children. But as soon as we try to reintroduce any amount of vegetable matter, any amount of plant matter, they get ill again, these children. And I have many adults now with mental illnesses who have been on this diet for several years and have no intentions of changing it. So the only things these people eat are meat, fish, eggs, and dairy, fermented dairy. That's all. They do not eat any plants at all. And they're very healthy, very well. They recover from their illnesses and live a very healthy life. So these patients have taught me that human beings can live perfectly well without plants. Perfectly well. But human beings cannot live without animal foods. That is essential. Animal foods are absolutely essential for us to have, because only animal foods are capable of building the physical structure of the human being, the body that you live in. It's essential. And the human body renews itself all the time. Cells die in our bodies all the time. New baby cells are born to replace them. To make these baby cells from something, building materials are required. And only animal foods can supply these building materials. It is possible to be a healthy vegetarian as long as you keep some animal foods in the diet. This kind of cultures exist in India and some other countries around the world. Why do you think a cow is a sacred animal in India? Because people through experience in India learned through thousands of years that without the cow, they would die. They would perish. because she gives them an animal food that can build their bodies. She gives them milk, cream, butter, ghee, cheese, yogurt. Yes, ghee that they cook on. It's wonderful. And these vegetarian cultures in India, they all have chickens and ducks. They eat a lot of eggs. So whenever they have a chance, or whenever they have a chance to eat meat, or they have a chance to eat fish, they don't say no to it. They eat it. Their traditional vegetarianism is out of poverty, out of simply no availability of meat. Meat is expensive, very expensive, always has been. And so is seafood as well for these people. So they would not say no to it. So the cultures which live on the natural foods that everything's cooked at home from fresh ingredients, nothing processed out of the supermarket, and who eat plenty of full fat dairy and plenty of eggs, and occasionally would also eat meat and fish, these cultures can be healthy. It is possible to be a healthy vegetarian that way. But it is not possible to be a healthy vegan long term. Veganism is a fast. It is not a diet. It should be only used as a fast for a short period of time to cleanse the body. But it cannot be chosen as a lifestyle, as a permanent lifestyle.
And as you said, the most important is no matter the direction that we decide to go, vegetarian or more animal protein, what is important is that it's clean, is the source, because that is what is really damaging the gut and then causing a lot of disorders. Well, so for everybody, here the book GAPS, Gut and Psychology Syndrome, to prevent any brain-related disorder. As Dr. Campbell-McBride said, all the recipes are here, the different stages and phases for GAP to heal the gut and then start feeling much better. All supplements, detoxification protocol, you can find it here. It's translated in a lot of languages. My mom in Spanish will read this book. And also you have the gapsdiet.com where they can also find all that valuable information. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for sharing all this information with us, and thank you for this fantastic work that you do and helping so many people already in healing their gut and a lot of brain-related disorders. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.